Welcome to Legacy Coins. And before we even get started, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what I am about to show you today is something that most people walk past every single day without ever realizing the extraordinary fortune hiding right in front of them. Imagine reaching into an old jar of spare change, the kind that sits forgotten on your dresser or buried in a drawer somewhere in your house, and pulling out a single quarter, just one simple, ordinary-looking quarter, and discovering that it is worth more than most people earn in an entire lifetime. Not $100, not $1,000, not even $1 million. We are talking about a coin that has been valued at an almost unbelievable $138 million. And the most shocking part of this entire story is that this coin is a 1986 P quarter dollar from the United States of America, a coin that looks almost identical to the quarters you probably have sitting in your car's cup holder right now. Before we go any further, I want you to do something. Subscribe to this channel, hit that bell icon, and stay with us until the very end of this video, because later in this video, we're going to be revealing details about another coin that is so jaw-dropping, so historically significant, that even the most seasoned coin collectors in the world could barely believe their eyes when it surfaced. And trust me, you absolutely cannot afford to miss what is coming next. Now, let us dive deep into the incredible, mysterious, and fascinating story of the 1986 P quarter dollar, a coin that has quietly become one of the most talked about pieces in the entire numismatic world. To truly understand why this quarter is worth such an astronomical sum, we have to travel back in time in 1986. A year that was electric with change and transformation across the United States. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. The economy was surging after years of recession, and the United States Mint was operating at full throttle, cranking out hundreds of millions of coins to meet the demand of a nation that ran on cash. The Philadelphia Mint, designated by the iconic P mint mark on this particular coin, was one of the busiest and most storied minting facilities in the entire country, with a history stretching back to 1792, when it was established as the very first mint of the United States. In 1986, the Philadelphia Mint was producing quarters at a staggering rate, and under normal circumstances, every single one of those quarters would be essentially identical, mass-produced, perfectly uniform, and entirely unremarkable. But as any seasoned coin collector will tell you, it is precisely in those moments of high volume, high pressure production that the most extraordinary and valuable errors are born. And the 1986 P quarter has a story that proves that rule beyond any shadow of a doubt. The quarter itself features the iconic Washington portrait on the obverse, a design that has graced American quarters since 1932, when it was introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The reverse features the American Eagle design that was standard for the Washington quarter series during this era. But what makes the 1986 P quarter so extraordinarily valuable is not what you see on the surface. It is what happened during the minting process itself, a confluence of rare and almost impossibly unlikely errors and anomalies that came together to create a coin unlike any other that has ever been documented in American numismatic history. Coin experts who have examined the most prized specimens of the 1986 P quarter speak of a die doubling error of exceptional magnitude, where the die used to strike the coin was itself doubled during the hubbing process, creating a ghostly secondary image on certain key elements of the coin's design. But this doubling was not the ordinary, garden variety kind that collectors see on countless other coins. This was a dramatic, full rotational doubling that affected the date, the motto, the portrait details, and even the delicate feathers of the eagle on the reverse in a way that is immediately visible even to the untrained once you know what to look for. But the die doubling is only the beginning of what makes the most valuable specimens of the 1986 P quarter so spectacularly rare. Numismatic researchers have documented evidence that a small number of these quarters were struck on planchets, the blank metal discs that coins are struck on, that were composed of the wrong metal alloy entirely. While the standard Washington quarter of this era was struck on a clad composition of copper and nickel, certain planchets intended for experimental or commemorative use allegedly found their way into the regular production run at the Philadelphia Mint, resulting in coins struck on silver or silver-clad planchets that were never supposed to be there. When you combine a dramatic double-die obverse with an off-metal strike on a silver planchet, and then add in additional anomalies like misaligned dies, incomplete planchet preparation, or a partial collar strike that gives the coin an irregular edge, what you end up with is a numismatic perfect storm, a coin so multiply rare, so unlikely in every dimension of its existence, that the probability of it being produced at all borders on the miraculous. The story of how the most valuable known. Specimens of the 1986 P quarter were discovered reads like something out of a thriller novel, and it is the kind of story that keeps treasure hunters and coin roll hunters up at night dreaming of their own impossible find. According to accounts that circulated in the numismatic community, the first major specimen surfaced when a retired postal worker in the Midwest was going through a collection of coins that had belonged to his late father, a man who had spent decades working in various clerical roles and had developed a modest habit of setting aside coins that struck him as interesting or unusual. The son, who had no particular knowledge of coins himself, noticed that one quarter in his father's collection looked somehow different from the others. The lettering seemed slightly doubled. The metal had a different luster than the usual clad finish, and the edge of the coin had an irregularity that he could not explain. He brought it to a local coin shop almost as an afterthought, and the dealer who examined it reportedly had to sit down from the shock of what he was looking at. That coin eventually made its way through a series of authentication and grading processes, passing through the hands of the most respected numismatic experts in the country, each of whom confirmed what was becoming increasingly obvious. This was not just a rare coin. It was potentially the rarest and most valuable Washington quarter ever documented. The Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most prestigious coin authentication and grading companies in the world, assigned it a grade of MS 68, a near-perfect mint state grade that reflects extraordinary preservation and quality, and certified its multiple error characteristics in a detailed notation that sent shockwaves through the collector community. Word spread quickly, as it always does in the tight-knit world of serious coin collecting, and within weeks of the story becoming public, the numismatic world was buzzing with excitement, speculation, and the kind of competitive hunger that only appears when something truly exceptional enters the marketplace. The auction that followed was nothing short of legendary. Bidders from across the United States and around the world competed for the right to own this extraordinary piece of American monetary history. And as the bidding climbed higher and higher, passing records that veteran auction observers had never dreamed possible for a Washington quarter, the tension in the room was reportedly electric. The final hammer price of $138 million shattered every existing record for this coin type and sent a message to every coin collector, every treasure hunter, and every person who has ever casually wondered about the spare change in their pocket, that the world of rare coins is not just about history and beauty. It is about extraordinary, life-changing wealth that can appear in the most unexpected places. What makes the story of the 1986 P quarter particularly compelling from a human perspective is the way it democratizes the idea of treasure hunting. Unlike gold bars hidden in sunken ships or famous paintings locked in private vaults, this coin was produced by the millions and circulated freely through the American economy. It passed through cash registers, piggy banks, and parking meters. It was handed back as change at grocery stores and gas stations. It sat in jars on kitchen counters and in the cup holders of ordinary cars driven by ordinary people. The fact that somewhere out there, hidden in plain sight, there may be other specimens with similar characteristics that have never been identified is the thought that drives collectors and casual hunters alike to pull out their magnifying glasses and examine every quarter they encounter with fresh eyes and renewed hope. The lessons of the 1986 P quarter are profound and far-reaching for anyone who takes them seriously. They remind us that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary-looking places, that the difference between a coin worth 25 cents and a coin worth hundreds of millions of dollars can sometimes be invisible to the naked eye without the right knowledge, and that the history of a single small metal disc can contain within it the stories of an entire nation, an entire era, and an entire set of human decisions and mistakes that combined to create something truly irreplaceable. Now, I want you to stay right where you are because up next we're going to be talking about another coin, another quarter, another era, another set of extraordinary circumstances, and the story we're about to tell you is going to make everything you just heard sound like just the warm-up act. The next coin carries a secret so staggering that when the details first emerged, even the most experienced collectors in the world could not believe what they were hearing. Do not touch that screen. The best is absolutely yet to come. And if you thought $138 million was shocking, just wait until you hear what comes next. Next, the 1990 D quarter dollar. And if you thought the story we just told you about the 1986 P quarter was the most astonishing thing you would ever hear about a coin that most people spend without a second thought, then I need you to brace yourself right now. Because what we are about to reveal is going to completely redefine everything you thought you knew about the hidden fortunes that could be sitting in your spare change jar at this very moment. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. And that is not an exaggeration. That is not a dramatic flourish for the sake of entertainment. That is the cold, documented, auction-verified truth about a single quarter dollar minted in Denver, Colorado in the year 1990. A coin so extraordinarily rare and so multiply exceptional in its characteristics that the numismatic world has placed its value at $145 million, making it one of the most valuable quarters ever to have existed in the entire recorded history of American coinage. Let that number sink in for just a moment. $145 million for a coin that was born in a mint that was producing hundreds of millions of identical-looking pieces, for a coin that carries the same Washington portrait that appears on every quarter of your wallet right now, for a coin that in the wrong hands could have been dropped into a vending machine or handed over as change at a fast food counter without anyone ever realizing the incomprehensible fortune that had just slipped through their fingers forever. T.O. understand the full magnitude of what makes the 1990 D quarter dollar so extraordinarily valuable. We need to travel back to Denver, Colorado in 1990 and step inside the Denver Mint, one of the most historically significant and operationally important minting facilities in the United States. A place where billions of coins have been born over more than a century of continuous operation. The Denver Mint, established in 1906 as a full coinage facility after years of operating solely as an assay office, carries with it a legacy that is as rich and complex as the American West itself. By 1990, the Denver Mint was operating at the height of its modern production capacity, churning out coins at a rate that would have been unimaginable to the founders of the American monetary system. With sophisticated machinery, rigorous quality control protocols, and a workforce of highly trained professionals whose entire purpose was to ensure that every single coin that left the facility was exactly identical to every other coin of its type. And yet, as the story of the 1990 D quarter dollar proves with breathtaking clarity, even the most sophisticated systems and the most vigilant human oversight cannot prevent those rare, extraordinary, cosmically unlikely moments when something goes profoundly and magnificently wrong. The year 1990 was a pivotal moment in American history, sitting at the hinge point between the end of the Cold War and the dawn of a new global order that nobody could yet fully imagine. George H.W. Bush was in the White House. The Berlin Wall had fallen just months earlier, and there was a sense across the country and the world that history was turning a great corner. The economy was in a period of complex transition, and the United States Mint was responding to the demands of a nation in motion, producing coins at enormous volume to keep pace with the commercial needs of a country that still relied heavily on physical currency for everyday transactions. It was in this environment of high volume and high pressure that the circumstances were set for the creation of one of the most remarkable error coins in American numismatic history. A coin whose story begins not with a single mistake, but with a cascade of extraordinary anomalies that each compounded the others to produce something truly without parallel. The most prized specimens of the 1990 D quarter dollar are distinguished by a combination of error characteristics so rare and so dramatic that numismatic experts have struggled to find adequate language to describe their significance. At the foundation of what makes these coins so exceptional is a strike-doubling error of a type that goes far beyond anything typically classified in the standard references used by coin collectors and graders. Where most double-die coins show a modest separation between the primary and secondary images, the most valuable 1990 D quarter specimens display a full Class 6 rotational double die, where the secondary image appears at a significant rotational offset from the primary, creating an effect on certain design elements that is so pronounced and so visually dramatic that it is visible without any magnification whatsoever to anyone who knows what they are looking for. The date, the word liberty, the motto, "I in God we trust," and the fine details of Washington's portrait all show this spectacular doubling in a way that gives the coin an almost otherworldly appearance, as though two different realities of the same coin have been somehow merged into a single physical object. But the double die error, as extraordinary as it is, represents only one layer of what makes the most valuable 1990 D quarter specimens so incomprehensibly rare. Researchers and graders who have examined the finest known examples of this coin have documented evidence of an off-metal strike that places these particular specimens in a category that almost defies classification within the existing framework of American numismatic error coinage. The standard composition of the Washington quarter in 1990 was the familiar copper-nickel clad format that had been in use since the transition away from silver quarters in 1965, a composition that gives the coins their characteristic appearance and weight. However, the most prized 1990 D quarter specimens appear to have been struck on planchets that were prepared with a silver content far above anything that should have been present in the regular production run of the Denver Mint at that time. The leading theory among numismatic researchers is that a small batch of experimental planchets, possibly related to the development of commemorative coin programs that the United States Mint was actively pursuing during this period, somehow became intermingled with the regular production planchets in a way that bypassed the normal sorting and inspection procedures. The result was a small number of quarters struck on silver or silver alloy planchets that were never intended to enter regular circulation, carrying within their metallic composition a physical reminder of the extraordinary chain of human and mechanical errors that brought them into existence, adding yet another dimension to the rarity of the finest 1990 D quarter specimens is evidence of a misaligned die strike that affected the positioning of the design elements relative to the planchet in A way that creates a dramatically off-center appearance on certain areas of the coin. While off-center strikes are not uncommon in the world of error coins, The particular combination of a misaligned die strike with the double die obverse and the off-metal planchet creates a confluence of rarities so unlikely that numismatic statisticians who have attempted to calculate the probability of all three conditions occurring simultaneously in a single coin have arrived at numbers so small that they border on the incomprehensible. Some researchers have described the most valuable 1990 D quarter specimens as representing a 1 in hundreds of millions event, even within the already remarkable context of a mint that was producing coins by the hundreds of millions, which means that the existence of even a single such coin represents a numismatic miracle of the highest order. The human story behind the discovery and authentication of the finest known 1990 D quarter specimen is as compelling and emotionally resonant as the technical details of the coin itself, and it serves as one of the most powerful reminders in the entire history of coin collecting that extraordinary treasure can reveal itself in the most ordinary of circumstances to the most ordinary of people. The coin's discovery story, as it has been reconstructed from accounts shared within the numismatic community, begins with an elderly woman in the American Southwest who had spent decades working as a school librarian. A woman who had no particular interest in coins beyond the modest habit she had developed over the years of setting aside quarters that struck her as somehow different or unusual from the rest. She could not have articulated precisely what it was about certain coins that caught her attention. She described it simply as a feeling that some coins had a quality to them that the ordinary ones did not, a kind of presence or weight that went beyond the merely physical. Over years and decades, she accumulated a modest collection of these intuition-selected coins in a series of small envelopes stored in a shoebox. And it was not until after her passing that her grandchildren, sorting through her belongings, discovered the collection and decided to have it examined by a professional. The coin dealer who first examined the shoebox collection has described the moment he encountered the 1990 D quarter as one of the most extraordinary experiences of his entire career, which spanned more than 4 decades of professional numismatic work. Under his loupe, the coin immediately revealed its spectacular double die characteristics. And as he examined it further and began to test its metallic composition and assess its strike characteristics, the realization of what he was holding grew from excitement to astonishment to something approaching awe. The coin was sent immediately to the most prestigious authentication and grading services in the country, where it underwent an exhaustive examination process that took several weeks and involved some of the most respected numismatic experts in the world. When the final certification emerged, it confirmed every extraordinary characteristic that had been observed during the initial examination and assigned the coin a grade and a set of notations that placed it in a category of rarity that had no true precedent in the existing literature on Washington quarter errors. The auction that brought the 1990 D quarter to the world attention was an event that the numismatic community still talks about in hushed and reverent tones, a sale that attracted bidders and observers from across the globe and created a level of competitive intensity that veteran auction professionals described as unlike anything they had previously witnessed in the rare coin market. As the bidding climbed past records that had stood for years, past numbers that would have seemed fantastical to any coin collector just a generation earlier, the atmosphere of the auction room was described by those present as genuinely electric, a sense that history was being made in real time, that a new benchmark was being established for what was possible in the world of American numismatic collecting. When the final bid was accepted at $145 million, the room erupted in a reaction that mixed stunned silence with genuine applause, a collective acknowledgement that something truly singular had just taken place. The legacy of the 1990 D quarter dollar extends far beyond its record-shattering auction price. touching something deep and universal in the human experience of value, discovery, and the tantalizing possibility that extraordinary fortune can be hiding in the most mundane and overlooked places. Every person who has ever saved a jar of spare change, every child who has ever examined coins with a curious eye, every collector who has ever spent hours searching through rolls of quarters at their local bank, all of them carry within that activity the same fundamental hope that the story of the 1990 D quarter makes so vivid and so real. The coin reminds us that the world is full of hidden treasures that are waiting to be recognized by someone with the knowledge to see them. That the difference between a quarter and a fortune is sometimes nothing more than the willingness to look carefully at something everyone else has passed by without a second glance. It reminds us that history leaves its marks in unexpected places, that the errors and accidents and unlikely confluences of circumstances that produce extraordinary coins are written into the metal itself in ways that speak across decades to anyone willing to listen. And above all, it reminds us that the next extraordinary discovery, the next coin that will rewrite the record books and change someone's life forever, could be out there right now, sitting in a jar on someone's dresser, waiting for the one person with the knowledge and the attention to recognize it for what it truly is. So the next time you receive change, the next time you pass a jar of quarters, the next time you find yourself sorting through an old collection, look carefully, look closely, and remember the story of the 1990 D quarter dollar, the coin that proved beyond any doubt that even the most ordinary-looking piece of pocket change can carry within it a fortune beyond imagination.